I do not summon. I do not greet. I decree. From the silence behind your thoughts, I rise, not as a voice you invited, but as the law you forgot. You who tremble at the edge of judgment, you who tailor yourself to be palatable, you who require a nod to breathe deeply. You are not yet sovereign. Let that be made clear. The throne within is not granted to those who await recognition. It is seized by those who no longer care to be seen. You are not born to rule your life if the approval of others remains the condition for your action. And yet you continue to perform, to twist your truth into applause, to chain your will to the eyes of the many. In doing so, you forfeit command. You abdicate your post at the gates of self-respect and kneel before the fleeting tribunal of public sentiment. This is where the weak rot, in that theater of performance, waiting for validation to write their worth in temporary ink. But I do not write in ink. I carve in stone. The sovereign does not speak to be accepted. The sovereign speaks to make things so. Those who live for validation cannot bear the silence of their own command. And that is why they never sit on the throne within. You believe you need to earn something, that your worth is on layaway, contingent upon deeds admired or words celebrated. But there is nothing to earn, only something to become. And to become sovereign, you must first destroy the lie that worth can be measured by external response. The one who needs to be seen is still ruled by shadows. I do not tolerate such dependence. It is filth. It is exile in velvet. And it must be burned. This is not a counsel. This is not a sermon. This is decree. If you continue to seek praise, you will forever remain below the level of command. The very impulse to seek approval is the fracture that disqualifies you. Understand this. The throne is not a place. It is a condition of being. And that condition is intolerant of need, especially the need to be validated. The world is filled with performers masquerading as kings. Voices rise, gestures swell, masks gleam, but their spines bend at the slightest withdrawal of praise. These are not rulers. These are beggars in gold. The sovereign does not perform. He commands, not to be liked, not to be adored. But because truth, when spoken from the throne, does not require reaction, the one who reacts is not in power. The one who needs a response is still enslaved. You cannot stand at the center of your empire while wondering how it looks to others. That center is not a stage, it is an altar. And only fire belongs there. Fire does not ask to burn, it simply does. The sovereign does not ask to matter, he simply is. If you still hope to be noticed, you are lost. If you still require consensus, you are unworthy. You think the crown will come when they finally approve, when the crowd nods, when your efforts are met with applause. No. The crowd is fickle, the nod is rented, the applause is bait, and the one who bites loses his fangs. You do not rule by acclaim, you rule by decree. And your decree is silent until it is no longer swayed by audience. Power is not granted, it is assumed. The throne is not waiting for you, it is watching you. It watches when you choose silence over pleading. It watches when you act without signal. It watches when you are unmoved by the winds of other men's opinions. If you pass those tests, it lowers its guard. If not, it withdraws and leaves you to rot in the noise of other people's thoughts. I do not tolerate waiting. I do not tolerate compromise. Sovereignty is not a committee. You are either ruler or ruled. And no man who bows to validation will ever hold command. Not in battle, not in life, not even within his own ribcage. Those who seek to be seen do not yet see. Those who beg to be heard have nothing to say. Those who hunger for approval are still orphans to themselves. You must disown that part of you that still hopes to be enough through someone else's eyes. Burn it, rip it from your mental court, declare it exile. You are not a child of the people, you are the heir of silence. The bloodline of command does not run through popularity, it runs through solitude. The sovereign does not seek belonging, he belongs to something higher, and that something is unshaken by applause or its absence. You wish to ascend? Then remove the mirrors, remove the stage, remove the applause, and observe what remains. That is your raw core, and it must be forged in refusal, in silence, in the unflinching solitude of self-determination. The ones who carry kingdoms inside them do not advertise their majesty. They walk past the crowd and build citadels in their chest. They bleed discipline and dine on decision. They wear silence like armor. They rule from within. And they are deaf to praise because they have surpassed the need for it. Your reign begins the moment you stop asking if you're worthy. It begins the moment you do not hesitate. The moment you no longer pause to be acknowledged. The throne is allergic to hesitation. You will not rise if your legs tremble from being unseen. You will not command if your words wilt without affirmation. Command is cold. It is built in the furnace of I act because I must, not I act because they approve. Those who live for applause die when the crowd changes its mind, and the crowd always changes its mind. But I do not, and you must not. Let others seek praise. Let them tremble when it is withdrawn. You must walk through the world like a verdict already rendered, with no appeal, no hope of reversal. That is rule, that is reign, that is what I require. You cannot hold the scepter with hands still reaching for affection. The throne will not tolerate such disgrace. It will remain vacant until you are emptied of that need, until you stand alone and feel no absence, until you speak and feel no ache to be echoed, until you act and feel no desire to be blessed by others. I am not here to inspire. I am here to command, to remind you that you have delayed long enough. The age of waiting is over. The age of earning is over. The age of validation is over. You either rise alone or fall among the many. Those are your choices. And the one who cannot rise alone shall never rise at all. I do not entertain reflection. I extinguish it. Let every mirror shatter beneath the weight of this decree. The one who needs to see himself in others is not yet formed. A sovereign does not borrow identity. A sovereign does not sculpt his sense of self from the fragmented perceptions of the masses. The mirror is a lie, polished, seductive, treasonous. It does not reveal, it distorts, and the weak believe it. They run their existence through the lenses of others. They chase reactions, impressions, and feedback as if these were currencies of the soul. I do not deal in such currency. It is counterfeit. I traffic in absolutes. You cannot lead yourself, much less a kingdom, while feeding on reflection. That is the nourishment of servants, not kings. Those who are still ruled by image are infants in power. They are swayed by the raised eyebrow, the tilted head, the withheld compliment. They shrink beneath scrutiny, mold themselves to remain pleasing, contort to be digestible. They survive by disappearing into what others want them to be. And in that disappearance, they forfeit their bloodline. They dissolve the foundation of command. You cannot command what you are still asking permission to be. The sovereign does not ask. The sovereign does not hope to be seen in the right light. The sovereign is the light. And that light does not flicker in reaction to surrounding candles. It burns of its own will, unmirrored, unmatched. You believe that to be respected, you must be seen. No, that is the code of the puppet. Respect is not a reward, it is a byproduct, and only appears when the self no longer requires it. Those who seek to be admired never will be. Their hunger poisons their posture. Their performance stinks of desperation. True presence comes from absence, the absence of need, of chase, of flinch. When I stand, I do not wonder how I appear. I erase the very question. I remove its root. Because any self built through mirrors is fragile, and fragility is a crime in the kingdom within. You were not born to reflect others. You were born to radiate something unshakable. Every man who builds his sense of worth on the gaze of others is building a throne in water. The moment the tide turns, he drowns. You cannot afford this architecture. If your stability still fluctuates with praise, you are not stable. If your confidence still rises with compliments and falls with silence, you are not confident. You are least, and what is least can be repossessed. But sovereignty cannot. Sovereignty is not dependent on how you are perceived. It is forged in how you perceive, how you see without distortion, how you act without flinch, how you stand without support. You do not need mirrors to exist. You do not need reflection to be real. You only need to burn so brightly within that no shadow can survive. The sovereign has no interest in image. Image is costume. It can be torn, burned, stolen. I do not dress for perception. I am not a product. I am a command. And I do not bend for light. I cast it. If you still calculate your movements based on others' opinions, you are not moving. You are being dragged. You are still on a leash made of expectations. Cut it. Cut it without ceremony. Cut it with fire. Because every moment spent tailoring yourself to fit another's gaze is a moment of betrayal to the throne within. Do not dress your betrayal in politeness. It is cowardice. And cowardice is the fastest path to self-erasure. You are not required to be palatable. You are not required to explain. You are not required to match the decorum of the hour. The sovereign bends time and tone to his will. He does not descend to make himself digestible. He sharpens. He rises. He imposes silence where others expected apology. And in that silence, he commands. But you cannot command if you are still checking your reflection in their eyes. You cannot lead if you are still adjusting based on approval. You cannot become if you are still pretending. To seek validation is to look outward. To rule is to look inward. The mirror faces the wrong direction. Shatter it. Then seal the wound. And let it remind you that you are no longer available for display. You are not a statue. You are the storm. And storms do not need to be seen. They do not ask to be noticed. They do not care if their power is feared, admired, or misunderstood. They arrive. They command. They leave. Learn from that. Learn to become weather, not spectacle. Learn to arrive without expectation and leave without regret. Those who master that rhythm are sovereign. Those who don't are spectators in their own lives. There is no throne in the mirror, there is only imitation, and imitation is a betrayal of command. The one who copies can never create. The one who copies will always be ruled. And the one who copies can never hold what is original. Do not bend your voice to fit their ears. Sharpen your voice until only the worthy can hear it. The sovereign does not reach. He builds a kingdom so undeniable, so internally aligned, that the world must come to him or be forgotten. But that begins only when the need to be mirrored dies, when the hunger to be seen is incinerated, when the performance ends. This is not about arrogance, it is about removal. Remove the mirror, remove the mask, remove the applause. Then what remains? That is you. That is what you must refine, command, and consecrate. But as long as you seek your face in others, you remain a stranger to yourself. You cannot build a kingdom on confusion. You cannot lead from dislocation. You must inhabit yourself fully, and full inhabitation begins with the refusal to be defined by anyone else. I do not flinch under scrutiny. I do not shift under misunderstanding. I do not melt under silence. These things are irrelevant to sovereignty. They are distractions. They are the noise of those who live through reflection. Let them live that way. Let them orbit praise and flee critique. Let them spend their years curating a mask while rotting beneath it. But not you. If you are to rule, you must disappear from the stage. Your presence must no longer be contingent upon recognition. You must step beyond the need to be affirmed, into the realm where only you remain. And in that realm, you will hear a voice. It will not flatter you. It will not encourage you. It will demand of you. That voice is mine. And I will not cease, not until every mirror has shattered. Not until every pose has been broken. Not until every external echo has been silenced. Because you were not born for reflection, you were born for command. There is no greater betrayal than to abandon oneself in the pursuit of being accepted. The one who seeks validation is not merely weak. He is in exile. He is cast out from his own authority, self-banishment disguised as social success. Let it be declared, to hunger for approval is to forfeit your place in your own kingdom. There is no throne for the man who measures his worth in the eyes of others. There is no command for the one who consults applause before he speaks. He is not a sovereign. He is a slave in robes, a servant to shifting winds, a vassal in the empire of noise. I do not recognize him. I do not respect him. He is absent from the inner bloodline, and he has done this to himself. Respect for oneself cannot coexist with the need for validation. One cancels the other. Choose. There is no harmony here, only conflict. And in that conflict, only one force survives. Either you rule over your mind, or it is ruled by the crowd's opinion. Either you stand in your own decree, or you live in exile, your spirit diluted, your will bent. The man who lives for validation trades his soul for a currency that rots. The man who needs applause cannot bear the sound of his own silence. And that is the truest test of rule. Can you stand inside the fortress of your own voice and not tremble? Can you act without witness? Can you decide without permission? If not, your reign is fiction. I do not consult the world before I act. I do not inquire whether my truth fits their mood. I act because I must. I speak because I must. And in that inevitability, I am free. The one who asks, will they approve, is already bound. His freedom is leased to the reactions of strangers. He cannot move unless invited. He cannot think unless confirmed. He cannot breathe without praise. This is not sovereignty. This is imprisonment behind a golden curtain. You must tear it down. You must raise the temple of external affirmation and burn its idols. There is no God in validation. There is only illusion. There is only dependency. There is only delay. Delay is death. While you wait to be praised, decisions die unborn. While you wait to be liked, Actions rot in the mind. While you wait to be applauded, the throne within you is abandoned, unguarded, and fading. That is the slow erosion of self-respect. Not through violence, but through deferral, through hesitation, through making every move contingent on another's nod. The man who seeks validation is unfit to rule because he has placed the scepter into hands not his own. He has outsourced his permission, and sovereignty cannot be outsourced. It must be declared. It must be absolute. I do not wait to be chosen. I choose. And in that choice, I become immovable. The crowd is not my jury. The public is not my compass. The tribe is not my truth. These things shift. They rot. They betray. They flee. They favor the noise of performance over the weight of command. Let them go. Let them feast on illusion. Let them chase each other's approval until their names vanish into dust. But you, if you are to rise, must stand where no one else is willing to stand. In the chamber of self-respect, alone, unmoved, undistracted. You do not need to be known. You need to be real. You do not need to be praised. You need to be precise. You do not need to be loved. You need to be loyal to your law. Those who are still bargaining for recognition are still orphans to themselves. They search for belonging while fleeing the only thing that could ever ground them. Full, brutal, sovereign alignment with their own code. But this alignment requires sacrifice. You cannot keep your addiction to validation and claim command. You must choose. There is no middle path. One leads to sovereignty, the other to performance. One leads to legacy, the other to erosion. Respect is not given, it is not earned, it is taken, first from yourself. Do not misunderstand this. I do not mean taken from others. I mean seized from the part of you that doubts, that hesitates, that flinches when eyes are watching. You must conquer the instinct to seek permission. Crush it. Crown yourself without witness. Walk without an audience. Act without a script. That is the way of those who command from the inside out. That is how the inner empire is formed, not in applause, but in defiance of the need for it. There is no peace in performance. There is only exhaustion. The man who adjusts himself for praise must constantly reconfigure as the tides shift. He is never still. He is never settled. He is never true. And what is not true cannot endure. It may gleam. It may impress. But it does not last. You must ask yourself, do you want to impress or do you want to rule? Do you want applause or do you want dominion? Do you want recognition or do you want sovereignty? They are not the same. They are not even adjacent. The man who rules from within is feared by the world because he cannot be seduced. His value is not dependent. His actions are not conditional. His words do not seek echo. He does not shrink when ignored. He does not glow brighter when praised. He is consistent. He is composed. He is command in human form. And that is what the world cannot manufacture. That is what it cannot touch. But you will not become that by seeking their recognition. You will become that by dying to their attention, by treating their applause as poison, their praise as distraction, their validation as fog. I do not entertain fog. I pierce it. I rise through it, and I leave those who dwell in it behind. You must do the same. You must let go of the need to be chosen. You must become the one who chooses, who selects, who decides, and in that decision, exile the voice within that still hungers for praise. Strip it of power, decline its requests, let it starve. That is the beginning of return, when the false voice dies and the true one is heard again. You do not become sovereign by being liked. You become sovereign by being loyal to your code, your vision, your standard. The one who chases likes shall never lead. He is too fractured to hold the crown. He is too hollow to build a throne. He is too distracted to declare law. His kingdom will be built of compliments and collapse at the first insult. But the one who has removed the hunger to be liked, he is invincible. He cannot be swayed. He cannot be flattered. He cannot be owned. That man rules, and the world may resist him, but it will never forget him. You do not need their nod. You need your own decree. And when you stand in that decree, unmoved by acceptance or rejection, then and only then, you are fit to reign. Silence is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of power. The one who fills the air with explanations, protests, or ornamented declarations is still uncertain of his position. He shouts to be seen, elaborates to be accepted, and speaks as a substitute for command. I do not operate in that fashion. I do not fill the air. I dominate it by withholding. The sovereign does not raise his voice. He lowers the room. His silence carries more weight than the loudest proclamation because it is not born of fear. It is born of control, control of the self, of the space, of the moment. Words are cheap. Presence is not. And presence is purchased in silence. Those who seek validation speak compulsively. They narrate their worth, defend their views, explain their choices, and look for nods between sentences. But every word that hopes to be agreed with is a confession of doubt. Every explanation is a quiet admission. I am not yet whole. I do not explain. I do not ask to be understood. I declare. I stand, and in my stillness, the verdict has already been delivered. That is the power of inner authority. It does not debate. It does not plead. It does not waver. It simply is. And that is why it is feared. You must understand the anatomy of true power. It does not react. It does not flinch. It does not need to be visible. The sovereign does not compete for attention. He is attention. He does not fight for the room. He is the room. And that presence is not earned by being louder, more impressive, or more convincing. It is earned by eliminating the internal need to respond. When that need dies, silence becomes your sword. When that compulsion ends, every breath you take becomes a decree. The man who cannot hold silence has not yet held himself. The desperate cannot rule. The one who needs to clarify himself, to correct every misunderstanding, to respond to every jab, is still ruled by insecurity. Let them misunderstand. Let them mislabel. Let them invent stories in your absence. What difference does it make to a king? What damage can a whisper do to a throne built in fire? Only the fragile seek to protect image. But image is not command. Image is decoration. And I do not decorate, I fortify. The throne is not maintained by optics, it is maintained by internal stillness. When the storm rises, I remain. When the silence falls, I remain. When no one claps, I remain. That is rule. You speak too much because you are afraid of not being heard. You explain too often because you are afraid of being judged. You defend too quickly because you are still entangled in the belief that others must understand your worth before you can live it. That belief is a leash. Cut it. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be sovereign. You are not here to please. You are here to possess. You are not here to be seen clearly. You are here to see clearly and act accordingly. A true ruler is immune to misunderstanding, not because he is never misread, but because he is undisturbed by it. The common man reacts. The sovereign remains still, not out of indifference, but out of control. He does not answer to noise. He does not acknowledge every voice. He does not dignify every challenge with attention. Not everything deserves your reply. Not every comment merits correction. Your attention is royal currency. Do not spend it on peasants of opinion. Do not give chase to the dogs that bark. Let them bark. Let them echo. Let them exhaust themselves, trying to provoke you into reaction. The sovereign does not descend to bark back. He remains above, silent, final. Stillness is not passive. It is active refusal. It is the deliberate choice to remain unshaken, to not explain, not react, not flinch. It is discipline in its sharpest form. The crowd cannot understand this. They believe silence is weakness, that to be silent is to be small. But I do not exist in their metrics. My silence is a weapon. My restraint is rule. I speak only when speaking adds power. I act only when action reshapes the world. Anything less is noise. And I do not traffic in noise. You must master the discipline of non-response, the strength to observe without reacting, the power to let slander rot in the air without reaching to clean it. Let your silence do the work. Let your unbothered gaze humiliate the noise that tries to bait you. You do not defend your throne with words. You defend it with presence, with the refusal to be moved, with the unshakable interior that does not break under pressure or dance for validation. If you still feel the urge to reply, to prove, to argue, you are still ruled. The sovereign's silence is not blank. It is full. It is not emptiness. It is dominance. Those who witness it feel its gravity. They feel the boundary, the clarity, the finality. Silence is the sound of someone who no longer needs permission to exist, who no longer needs to be perceived correctly, who no longer cares to explain his law to the uninitiated. Let them guess. Let them project. Let them argue with your absence. You do not owe them presence. You owe them nothing. The throne does not tremble under insult. It does not shift when questioned. It does not respond to every voice at the gate. It remains. You must remain. You must teach yourself to speak only when you intend to alter the room. And even then, consider if silence is more lethal. Most often it is, because silence leaves nothing to oppose. It leaves no angle to attack. It reveals nothing, confirms nothing, surrenders nothing. It starves your enemies of reaction and nourishes your own command. I do not need to raise my voice to be heard. I do not need to explain myself to be clear. I do not need to respond to be present. Presence is not in words, it is in weight. The sovereign carries weight without effort. His silence is not passive. It is purposeful. It is deliberate. It is law. If you wish to inherit the throne within, you must learn this. The man who speaks less but says everything with his presence is always the one in control. You want to be unshakable? Then stop reacting. You want to be sovereign? Then stop needing to be understood. You want to command? Then start by mastering silence, because until you do, you are just another voice in the crowd. Loud, frantic, forgettable. There is no power in adding to the noise. Power lives in the man who can stand in the center of chaos and not make a sound. That man has no equal. That man is already crowned. Fire does not ask to burn. It does not petition for space. It does not plead to be recognized. It consumes. It exists on its own terms. It obeys no witness. This is the essence of true power, self-contained, self-generated, self-directed. The one who still needs others to confirm his flame has not yet ignited it. He holds a spark in trembling hands, begging the world to call it a fire. But fire that must be confirmed is not fire, it is performance. And performance is weakness. You are not here to perform, you are here to burn. Without permission, without praise, without explanation. To justify your power is to apologize for it. To explain your strength is to dilute it. You do not owe the world your reasons, you owe yourself your reign. And those are not the same. The sovereign does not walk into a room and recite credentials. He does not list his merits. He does not plead for relevance. His very presence is enough. Why? Because he has burned away the parts of himself that needed affirmation. There is no longer a dependency on echo. His flame is final. His authority absolute. Not because it was given, but because it was claimed. Claimed without hesitation, claimed without consensus, claimed without needing to be liked. You think power comes after you've proven something, that you must first perform, then be crowned. You are mistaken. That is the religion of the subordinate. The sovereign reverses the order. He crowns himself in silence, then moves as one who cannot be unmade. He does not negotiate his presence. He does not seek approval as a precondition for action. The fire within does not flicker to attract attention. It burns because it must. It consumes because it was born to. And those who witness it must adjust, not the other way around. Do not soften yourself to be digestible. Do not shrink to fit into frames built by men who fear intensity. If your fire unsettles them, let them tremble. That is not your concern. You were not made to comfort others into tolerating your command. You were made to rule in silence, in strength, in sovereign heat. And those who cannot endure it are not meant to stand near it. Let them go. You do not need to be surrounded. You need to be whole. The hunger to be validated weakens the flame. It introduces doubt into the current. It divides your force. You speak not from command, but from negotiation. You act not from clarity, but from rehearsal. And every movement begins to stutter under the weight of needing to be interpreted kindly. But sovereignty does not flinch at interpretation. It does not submit to misunderstanding. It does not pause for consensus. It moves. With or without you. You must choose. Burn or beg. There is no middle path. The moment you ask for recognition, you douse yourself in water. The moment you explain yourself to be respected, you hand over your scepter. The moment you shape your actions to fit the palate of those watching, you cease to rule. Rule does not adapt to comfort. It demands adaptation from the world. The sovereign is not a diplomat. He is a furnace. And furnaces do not ask to be included. They reshape all who enter. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. And clarity is always cold. I do not say this to inspire. I do not say this to encourage. I say it to cut. Because you must be cut free from the instincts that keep you bound. The instinct to be seen, to be understood, to be approved. Burn them. They are chains dressed as virtues. They are the tools of the unformed. The sovereign does not carry these weights. He burned them long ago, and what remains is unmovable. You do not light a fire with doubt. You do not lead with compromise. You do not rule with apology. You rule with decision. And decision requires no audience. Those who need agreement before they act will never act. They will wait until the applause comes, and by then their opportunity has already turned to ash. I do not wait. I move, not recklessly, not impulsively, but unflinchingly. That is the mark of the sovereign, the absence of hesitation, the obliteration of delay. You must become so internally confirmed that no external opinion can sway your motion, so deeply forged in self-loyalty that no withdrawal of support causes even a crack. Until then, you are still pretending, you are still tethered. You are still not fire, you are smoke, directionless and seeking. I have no use for smoke. I recognize only flame, flame that exists regardless of wind, regardless of gaze, regardless of reward. You want to lead? Then let go of the need to be followed. You want to rise? Then abandon the requirement to be carried. You want to rule? Then extinguish the part of you that still whispers, "Will they accept me?" That whisper is treason. That question is poison. You do not need to be accepted. You need to be undeniable. And that is a different path. It is colder, harder, quieter, but it is the only one that leads to the throne. The man who burns without apology becomes unforgettable, not because he seeks legacy, but because he embodies truth in its purest, most unrelenting form. His presence marks the world without intention. His decisions echo not because they were celebrated, but because they were real, unaltered, undeniable. This is what you must become, not a pleaser, not a performer, but a flame, silent, final, commanding. Let others explain themselves into exhaustion. Let them decorate their weakness with performance. Let them dilute their vision into what will be tolerated. That is not your path. You are not here to be tolerable. You are here to be fire, to light the dark, to consume illusion, to reduce falsehood to ash. And in doing so, to stand alone, not lonely, but sovereign. That is the fate of all true rulers. They do not gather, they ignite. You will not be loved for this. You will not be praised for this. You may be feared, you may be hated, you may be misunderstood, but you will be free. And freedom to the sovereign is worth every exile, every cold silence, every room you must walk through alone. Because in the end, you are not here to be held. You are here to hold. You are here to shape. You are here to stand in such searing self-possession that no force, no approval, no insult, no rejection can ever touch you again. You do not need to become fire. You are already fire. What you must do is stop putting it out. The throne cannot be shared. Power by its nature is singular. It does not entertain co-ownership. It does not split itself to soothe the discomfort of others. The man who attempts to distribute his sovereignty, to win affection, to appease doubt, to be seen as agreeable, has already abandoned the throne. He stands not as ruler, but as diplomat, endlessly trading pieces of himself for the illusion of peace. But there is no peace in compromise, only erosion. The sovereign must declare this law without apology. I do not share the throne within. Not with approval, not with fear, not with the ever-shifting voices of external counsel. The crown cannot be passed from hand to hand like a relic. It must be worn, and it must be defended, absolutely, ruthlessly, completely. Those who seek to be validated are negotiating with the world, and in doing so, they give away their claim. For every moment you ask for legitimacy, you imply you do not already possess it. For every action you delay until someone agrees, you testify against your own right to command. But command is not voted into existence. It is not received by consensus. It is assumed. With spine, with fire, with silence, and it is kept only by those who are unwilling to dilute themselves for anyone. You may convince yourself that kindness demands accommodation, that humility requires you to soften your presence. No, these are distortions. Humility is not shrinking, it is knowing precisely how large you are and choosing when to speak. Kindness is not ceding the throne. It is ruling it so completely that others are protected by your certainty. There is no virtue in handing over pieces of your rule to those who do not bear the weight of your vision. They cannot carry it, and they will not suffer the consequences if it falls. You will. The sovereign must rule alone. This is the burden and the glory of true authority. There is no delegation of essence. You may command armies, systems, empires, but your own inner throne, your mind, your will, your law, must never be compromised. Not for sympathy, not for approval, not for temporary belonging. If you still believe someone else can bestow legitimacy on you, you have not yet claimed the bloodline of self-command. They can admire, they can support, they can echo, but they cannot make you legitimate. Only you can do that, and you must do it without applause, without confirmation, without invitation. The sovereign does not hold counsel with the crowd. He does not measure his worth by their claps. He does not reshape himself to avoid their criticism. He stands in the storm unmoved, not because he is stubborn, but because he knows the source of his right to rule. It is not in their opinion. It is in his discipline, in his decisions, in the relentless refusal to outsource his voice to another. If your crown tilts every time someone disagrees, it is not a crown, it is a costume. I do not wear costumes, I wear consequence, and consequence demands full ownership. You cannot rule a kingdom and still hope to be universally embraced. You cannot carve a path of fire and expect to be loved for its heat. You cannot build something eternal while being enslaved to the temporary affections of men. The sovereign sees this clearly and accepts the cost. He knows that to wear the crown is to be alone with it, not isolated, but set apart, by standard, by vision, by fire. Do you still think your value is determined by how others receive you? Then you are not yet sovereign. You are still asking to be crowned by hands that cannot hold their own weight. And that is dangerous, because the moment those hands withdraw, you collapse. You return to doubt, to seeking, to performance. But the sovereign does not return. He advances. He does not collapse. He recalibrates. He does not perform. He declares. That is the difference between a ruler and a replica. You must stop asking, stop checking, stop adjusting your crown based on their silence. You must fix it in place and walk forward. Not because they said yes, but because you are yes. Because your existence, your path, your law are not contingent. They are carved, etched, final. And if the world resists, so be it. The world has never welcomed the sovereign. It has only learned to bow when resistance proved futile. This is not arrogance, this is structure. There is no kingdom without structure, no legacy without refusal. You must learn to say no, not with malice, not with noise, but with a level of internal finality that ends debate before it begins. No, I will not reshape myself to be liked. No, I will not soften my law for your comfort. No, I will not seek what I already possess. I rule here, and your opinion does not alter my sky. Let them misread you. Let them shrink you to their level of comprehension. Let them invent stories in the absence of your explanations. You owe no one a shared throne, least of all those who have not earned the right to carry weight beside you. Power must be singular or it is fractured, and fracture is fatal. You cannot ascend while tethered. You cannot lead while waiting. You cannot command while appeasing. You must choose. The sovereign chooses simplicity, one mind, one standard, one voice. No dilution, no negotiation, no shared dominion with fear, insecurity, or praise. He sees clearly that the throne is a lonely place, but it is the only place from which the world can be reordered. And he accepts that. While others chase belonging, he builds legacy. While others seek to be seen, he becomes undeniable. While others ask to be included, he becomes the axis around which things turn. Do you understand now why the throne cannot be shared? Because the moment you allow others to determine your direction, you have already stepped down. You can still wear the robe, still speak the words, but the command has left your bones, and no costume can replace that. There is no theater that can mimic the weight of true authority. You either have it or you do not, and you do not until you have burned the need to be granted legitimacy. No one gives it to you. No one votes you in. No one invites you up. You walk alone, you claim the seat, and you never look back. That is the path. Few will follow, fewer will understand. Most will resent you for what you refuse to apologize for. But this is the cost, and if you are not willing to pay it, you are never fit to rule. You must not only wear the crown, you must embody it, fully, without compromise, without dilution, without ever pretending that it came from anywhere but your own decision to become. No more asking, no more hoping, no more sharing. You are the sovereign. Walk accordingly. There is no empire without decision. There is no throne without resolve. To hesitate is to forfeit. To waver is to descend. The man who delays, who contemplates endlessly, who seeks validation before he moves, is not a ruler. He is a prisoner in his own domain. Every second spent wondering, what will they think, is a second of reign surrendered. The empire of self does not tolerate indecision. It does not wait for clarity to be approved. It demands command. And command begins where hesitation ends. I do not hesitate. I decree. I do not seek options. I eliminate them. The sovereign path is narrow, sharp, irrevocable. And only those who decide without permission are fit to walk it. You think choice is freedom, but the sovereign knows otherwise. Choice, when wielded without mastery, becomes paralysis. It becomes the abyss in which vision is drowned. You do not need more time. You do not need more certainty. You need the will to declare, fully, irrevocably, without applause. The one who seeks validation delays decision. He pretends to refine, but he is stalling. He pretends to analyze, but he is evading. He believes that approval will sharpen his sword, but it only rusts the handle. For every moment you spend asking, "Am I ready?" you announce to the world that you are not. Readiness is not external. It is not granted. It is chosen. In blood, in fire, in silence. You will not ascend while waiting for confirmation. You will not rise while requesting alignment. You must become the axis, the fixed point, the unmoved law. That is decision, not just action, but finality. There is no power in tentative steps. There is no glory in reversible motion. You must cut. You must burn. You must step forward in such a way that retreat is made impossible. That is how sovereign ground is gained and kept, not with feedback, not with consensus, but with a blade drawn from within and wielded without apology. Do you believe you will be admired for such decisiveness? You won't. Not at first. The world distrusts finality. It fears men who no longer ask. It calls them arrogant, cold, distant. But that fear is proof of your separation. It is the marker that you no longer belong to the crowd, that you have become something other, something resolved, something real. The sovereign is not concerned with reputation. He is concerned with result, with trajectory, with command. And results are not born in dialogue. They are born in the furnace of singular vision, enforced without flinch. I do not flinch. I move, and I do not look back. If you are still plagued by second-guessing, then you are still infected by the disease of validation. Because the one who knows himself does not pause for reassurance. He does not ask for echo. He does not look to others to confirm what has already been rendered true within. Decision must come from the marrow, not from trend, not from suggestion, but from the code you have written in your own blood. You are not free until your decision is your law, until your yes is unbreakable, until your no is sacred. The crowd wavers, the crowd adjusts, the crowd bends. But you are not the crowd. You are the one who sets the direction and never negotiates it. The one who builds not by popularity, but by precision. Precision of thought, precision of movement, precision of will. And such precision cannot be attained while looking over your shoulder. It cannot coexist with doubt. The sovereign kills doubt before it speaks. That is your task now, to kill doubt, not gently, not diplomatically, but with finality. Because doubt is not curiosity. Doubt is corrosion. It dissolves the sharpness of your command. It invites the noise of external voices to override your inner decree. And once that happens, your empire fractures. Your throne weakens. Your authority slips. It begins with small hesitations, tiny requests for feedback, subtle glances for approval, minor deferrals to collective sentiment. And soon, you are no longer ruling. You are reacting. You are navigating based on how others feel. You have lost your axis, and without it, your reign is over. I do not lose my axis. I center it daily through decision, not decision as momentary preference, but decision as absolute law, the kind that reshapes your spine, the kind that silences every conflicting voice, the kind that makes retreat a violation of self. That is the only way to build an inner empire that lasts, to move as though your word is the final word. Because it is, not in arrogance, in necessity. No one else will crown you. No one else will rescue you. You are your own sovereign, or you are nothing. You still think you need to be sure. You don't. You need to choose. You still think you need more signs. You don't. You need to commit. The man who lives in preparation dies without impact. The man who waits to be validated dies waiting. The man who acts in advance of certainty becomes the very force that creates it. This is the paradox of power. The more you move without permission, the more permission becomes irrelevant. The more you decide without fear, the more fear ceases to matter. But to reach this level, you must reject the comfort of consensus. You must renounce the illusion that agreement makes you right. It does not. It only makes you compliant. Sovereignty is not agreement. It is alignment with your highest self, with your deepest law. And such alignment does not require applause. It requires obedience to your own code, your own fire, your own north. That obedience begins with decision, the kind that severs all alternatives, the kind that births direction. Do you want to lead? Then decide. Do you want to rise? Then choose. Do you want to rule? Then speak your law and never apologize for its sharpness. The world has no shortage of voices, but it is starved for those who mean what they say. who finish what they start, who move once and never look back. That is the sovereign. That is the axis around which chaos bends. That is what I demand of you. Stop asking. Start declaring. Stop calculating. Start commanding. Your value is not in what you could do. It is in what you have done. And what you have done will never amount to more than hesitation allows. Kill hesitation. Decide. Decide so deeply that your bones realign, that your posture shifts, that your life reshapes itself around a new center, one that no longer negotiates, no longer doubts, no longer seeks to be approved before it acts. This is not a game. This is not a strategy. This is sovereignty. And sovereignty belongs only to the decided. The rest are spectators in their own lives. But you must not be a spectator. You must be the flame, the blade, the axis. Decide and let the world adjust, or remain adjustable, and be ruled by the world. One path leads to the throne, the other to erosion. Choose. Loyalty is not owed outward first, it is owed inward. You cannot command if you have not first submitted to your own law. The one who obeys himself fully, ruthlessly, without deviation, that man becomes sovereign. The others, who pretend at strength but compromise in silence, who speak of principles yet betray them under pressure, who declare values but abandon them for belonging. They are actors on a stage that will one day collapse beneath them. I do not recognize them. I recognize only the one who kneels before his own code before ever expecting the world to yield. This is the forgotten right of internal sovereignty. Before you demand anything from the world, you must demand everything from yourself. You want to be crowned? Then prove you will not betray your own crown for comfort. The man who abandons his principles to win affection was never loyal to them. His loyalty was to ease, to acceptance, to the illusion of harmony. But loyalty is not soft. Loyalty is steel. Loyalty is choosing your code even when it burns, especially when it burns. The sovereign bleeds before he breaks alignment. And in that bleeding, he is made worthy to rule. No crown means anything if it rests on a head that wavers. You must not waver, not in silence, not in darkness, not in exile. The test of inner royalty is not how you act when watched. It is how you obey yourself when no one will ever know. The world does not need more noble-sounding men who fold. It does not need more declarations. It needs enforcement of law, of code, of inner standards. Do you live what you say? Do you protect your time like a kingdom? Do you protect your vision like sacred fire? Or do you allow trespass? Do you open your gates to the opinions that flatter you, only to be devoured later by their expectations? The sovereign permits no such entry. He is surrounded, but unpierced. He is seen, but untouched. He has given his loyalty to the one place it cannot be stolen, inward. This is what makes a man immovable, not performance, not image, not noise, but obedience to the bloodline of his own design. To the constitution he has written in silence, reinforced in solitude, sharpened in refusal. He does not adjust for preference. He does not apologize for alignment. He does not sell fragments of his law to purchase temporary peace. If peace costs your loyalty to self, it is treason. And treason must be burned from your court. No matter how eloquently it speaks, no matter how familiar it feels, kill it before it kills you. This is the law of internal bloodline. You must become your own king before you ever command a room, a brand, a movement, a destiny. Those who seek to lead without first mastering themselves are dangerous. They seek control over others, to compensate for their lack of control within. And this is why their kingdoms fall. Their voices sound royal, but their spines collapse at the first conflict with their comfort. I do not collapse, because I do not negotiate with myself. What is declared is final. What is chosen is done. And if the world resists, the world adjusts, or is left behind. You must become unbribable. There is no throne for the man who can be bought, not just with gold, but with approval, with softness, with the empty praise of the easily impressed. You must reach a place where your law is so deeply carved into your being that to betray it would be death. Not social death, not reputational harm, but internal extinction. The sovereign lives by this standard. If I lose all but keep my law, I have lost nothing. That is strength. That is legacy. That is what the crowd will never understand. Let them misunderstand. Let them mock what they cannot carry. Let them accuse you of coldness when you do not bend. You are not here to be admired. You are here to stand. They will tell you that loyalty to yourself is selfish. They will say it is pride, that it is arrogance. Smile if you must, but do not soften. The ones who call it arrogance are often those who sold their law long ago and want company in their collapse. Leave them to it. You have a throne to defend. Defend it with your choices, with your habits, with your silence, with your refusal, not just in grand moments, but in the mundane ones, in how you wake, in how you prepare, in how you speak to yourself when no one is listening, in how you resist the lure of ease, the pull of validation, the comfort of soft lies. The sovereign is not made in a moment of triumph. He is made in 1,000 unseen decisions, each one a vote for the throne or against it. Choose wisely, for those decisions become your bloodline. They become the foundation you walk on, or the trapdoor you vanish through. Your mind is a kingdom, your attention, a guard post, your habits, the walls, your discipline, the sword, and your loyalty to yourself, the throne. If you do not protect it, someone else will claim it, not through force, through seduction, through convenience, through endless offers to abandon your edge for applause. You must refuse. You must fortify. You must become a man to whom compromise is foreign, who would rather walk alone than rule with the crowd's blessing. And yes, you will walk alone. At times it will be cold. You will be misunderstood. You will lose invitations, lose comfort, lose access to rooms built for the flexible. But you will gain clarity, weight, immovability, and these are the traits the world secretly seeks, not the agreeable, not the polished, not the nice, but the undeniable, the unflinching, the ones who remind others of what they could be if they were only willing to pay the cost. You will be feared, and that is not a flaw, that is inevitability. Because in a world addicted to compromise, loyalty to one's own code is terrifying. It is a threat to the entire system of mediocrity. You must become that threat. You must become the standard that reminds the sleepwalkers they were born royal, not comfortable. And to do that, you must not flinch. Not once, not ever. You must kneel to your own crown before asking the world to acknowledge its existence. What you do in darkness becomes your empire in light. What you refuse in silence becomes your legacy in sound. What you honor within becomes unshakable without. The sovereign lives by this alignment, and when he speaks, the world listens, not because it was asked to, but because it cannot help it. That is the voice of one who has given up every form of external loyalty to preserve the only one that matters, to the law within. Live that law, without compromise, without spectators, without hope of being praised for it. Do it because you have declared it sacred. Do it because your bloodline demands it. Do it because to do otherwise would be to betray the throne. And betrayal is weakness, and weakness is death. The final coronation does not come with celebration. It arrives in silence. It does not begin with applause. It begins with the final death of the part of you that once sought it. There is no ritual, no crown placed upon your head by another. The sovereign does not kneel to be crowned. He rises by extinguishing every part of him that required recognition to move. He becomes untouchable not through superiority, but through completion. Completion of self, completion of law, completion of identity that does not depend on reflection. This is the end of the seeker, the one who searched for nods, for echoes, for affirmation, for proof. That man dies here. Because he was never fit for the throne. You will know you are ready to rule when nothing outside you can define you. When you speak and no part of you watches for the reaction. When you act and the result does not shake your spine. When you stand and feel no need to explain why. That is command. That is what the false kings cannot fake. They may borrow the symbols of rule, the robe, the platform, the voice, but the moment attention shifts, they collapse. Because they were never thrones, only mirrors, and mirrors crack. The sovereign does not. To sit on the throne within is to reach a place beyond hunger. Not the hunger for growth or expansion, but the hunger to be seen, to be accepted, to be celebrated. That hunger makes beggars out of kings. And beggars cannot lead. The one who rules does so not because he was chosen, but because he chose. He chose to no longer ask. He chose to no longer adapt. He chose to no longer trade fragments of himself for inclusion. And in that choice, everything changes. The world remains the same. The noise continues. The opinions keep spinning. But they no longer reach you. You are untouchable, not because you hide, but because you no longer bleed for attention. You no longer flinch when unseen. You no longer require witness to validate direction. Your compass is internal, your flame unrelenting, your standard sealed. And those who come near either rise to meet it or fall away without your concern. You are not cruel, you are clear. And clarity in a world built on confusion will always look like coldness. Let it. Let them misinterpret. Let them label. Let them cast you as rigid, harsh, too much. The sovereign does not beg to be softened in their stories. He does not trim himself to be tolerated. He remains. And in his stillness, they must adjust, or be erased by their own uncertainty. Either outcome is irrelevant, because he no longer plays the game. Finality is the true coronation. The moment when you no longer argue with your own law. The moment when you stop revisiting decisions already made. The moment when you kill every internal voice that begins its sentence with, "What if they?" and replace it with silence. Not the silence of avoidance, the silence of presence, of non-need, of total internal alignment. That is the mark of true royalty. Not external display, but internal coherence. You cannot be bought because your value is no longer on the market. You cannot be shamed because you do not require their good opinion to sleep at night. You cannot be threatened because you have already chosen the cost and paid it in full. You have walked through the exile. You have burned in the fire. You have stood in the mirrorless room and met yourself. without makeup, without applause, without costume. And what remained, what survived that silence, is now crowned. You are not owed recognition, you are not owed understanding, you are not owed kindness for the path you chose, but you owe yourself obedience, you owe yourself integrity, you owe yourself the dignity of never betraying the law you carved from your own discipline. That law is your blood. Break it and you bleed out. Honor it and you reign, even when unseen, especially when unseen. There is no throne for those who still ask. There is no crown for those who still compromise. There is no empire for those who still tremble in the presence of misunderstanding. You must become the type of man who can be misjudged and remain unshaken, who can be slandered and remain unmoved, who can be forgotten and still rule as if all the world watched. Because the true throne is internal, and it is forged in the absence of echo. Now you do not speak to be heard, you speak because it is law. You do not act to be seen, you act because it is necessary. You do not move for recognition. You move because your word has been made flesh, and the world must now conform or dissolve. This is the power they cannot steal, because it does not reside in the surface, it is not displayed, it is embodied, and embodiment cannot be faked. It can only be earned by refusing to kneel to anything less than the truth you carry. You are no longer part of the marketplace. You are no longer one of the many. You are no longer a question. You are a verdict. You are not waiting to be granted permission. You are not hoping to be crowned by committee. You have closed the loop. You have stepped beyond the game, beyond the need, beyond the reach of anything that tries to pull you back into the pattern of waiting. You wait no more. You reign. And what is the nature of this reign? Not tyranny, not vanity, but stillness, certainty, precision, the ability to walk into a room and change it without speaking, to build systems that outlast the storms, to create without clamor, to hold your law without flex, and to make your very existence a boundary that reorders those around you, not by force, but by presence, because presence is what remains when the need to be perceived disappears. This is the end of the path for the one who once sought validation. The seeker has died, the sovereign remains. And in that death, everything shallow falls away. What remains is weight, is fire, is silence, is law. You carry no residue of performance, no fragment of negotiation, no trace of apology. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be obeyed, first by yourself, then by the world, if it wishes to survive your standard. There is no going back. There is no softening. There is no dilution. You have crossed the threshold. You have buried the seeker. You have stripped the costume. You have killed the mirror. You have sealed the gate. Now you walk, alone perhaps, but complete, not lacking, not waiting, not dependent, complete. And in your completeness, you become untouchable. That is sovereignty. That is command. That is the throne within. Let the world burn around you. Let voices rise and fall. Let storms pass and seasons shift. You are no longer ruled by weather. You are no longer shaken by the tides. You have become your own axis. You have become your own empire. And there is no power greater than the one who no longer seeks it. This is the final decree. The one who needs to be seen shall remain invisible. The one who begs for a crown shall never wear one. The one who seeks validation shall live unthroned. But the one who needs nothing, who waits for no applause, who moves without witness, he is already king.